Hello and welcome to AdaPulse, the channel that brings you all the news and all the proposals that are in and around the Cardano ecosystem. Now today we're talking about why Cardano isn't sexy and how that's a good thing. This is an article by FLANTOSHI from the AdaPulse team. We are talking about investments, so to steal a quote from Wallace Inc.
Man, this ain't financial advice.
I'm Josh from ATM, let's dig straight into this. How being boring can make you rich. The sexiest investments aren't always the best. In fact, they're the ones more likely to underperform in the long run. And if you think about it, if there was a list of the most desirable traits to have, sex appeal would definitely become top of the list for most people, with intellect and common sense coming second and third. But you know, I'm happy. I may look like the Count from Sesame Street's stunt double, but that's fine with me. But it makes sense why we do this. We're a social species that wouldn't be able to hack it in the wild without the help and approbation of our peers. So looking for social recognition is embedded deep into our sort of fight or flight instincts. So unsurprisingly, we often fall prey to a group consensus and end up not really thinking for ourselves. We don't only have these biases in the social arena, but we do it when we invest as well. So just because some project is exciting, it doesn't mean that it's a good investment. So on the contrary, as we will explore sort of in this episode, boring is profitable. I also can't stress this enough when it comes to catalyst proposals too. So think about that as well when you are voting. It's not always the sexiest projects that are the best one. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Back to investments. Boring is profitable. So just to give you an example, there's people who specialise in ghostwriting, for example, in all matter of bizarre subjects like cat furniture reviews or whatever. But the point is, instead of having to compete with a universe of hundreds of millions of wannabe writers, they end up competing with just a handful of them. And so you can charge accordingly. The same happens with investing. The news will focus on attention-grabbing headlines, not solid business fundamentals. And as such, given that people default to names and ideas they're already familiar with, they'll go with exciting investment ideas that they've already heard about before. So you should do the exact opposite. Don't focus on something flashy. Invest in projects that are relatively dull and distinctly unsexy, but have high profit margins and solid business models. Sexy investments have the danger of being very unstable and having less substance than you might expect. People often invest as a status symbol or to be considered as part of the in crowd. However, the problem with assigning a status symbol to an investment is that it becomes just like any other luxury good and people become rather price insensitive. So objectively speaking, is a Gucci bag worth thousands of dollars? Well, no. The mere fact that there are brand knockoffs that are identical to it but cost a fraction of the original price should be enough to hint that there's something else going on, especially as it's not a project that's dependent on research and development. And the same could be said about sexy companies like Tesla. Objectively speaking, is Tesla that far ahead of the competition to be worth basically the whole car industry? Especially when it only makes 1/46th of the revenue. Wall Street seems to disagree, as Tesla held the title of most shorted stock in the market for quite some time. So in other words, investors were taking bets that the price was heading down in the future. Despite no longer being the most shorted stock out there, it's unlikely the financiers have altered their minds. Nothing has fundamentally changed, except the juice might not be worth the squeeze, if you know what I mean. Now, to quote one of the grandfathers of modern economics, John Maynard Keynes, markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. Tesla's position as a sexy company allows it to break the rules and get away with it. They can overpromise and consistently underdeliver, over-leverage themselves and pay it off by putting equity as collateral, etc. Sexiness allows a company to break the fetters of reality. However, there usually comes a day where the spell wears off and the castle in the air comes crashing down. It might not be today or tomorrow, it might not even be this decade, but the spell does eventually wear off. So at this point, it's anyone's guess what might happen. Hype companies don't need to deliver results until the hype dies and the bill comes. More often than not, they can't pay it back. Cardano isn't sexy. To start, let's look at this guy. Is this sexy? Or here's the money shot. Well, neither is peer review, decentralization, formal programming standards, or meticulous care to prepare for upcoming global regulation is something that excites most people. That said, it attracts the right audience, the type of person who doesn't measure their attention span in days and weeks, but in months and years. The Cardano community understands that there is value in building something with care. They also know that taking shortcuts by centralizing the infrastructure, using a programming language that is less secure but more user-friendly, and not caring about the regulatory landscape in the future would speed up the process, but at the cost of its potential. For Cardano to succeed, it must focus on the boring, the unglamorous, things nobody else wants to do, but everyone needs and is willing to pay for. How to get mainstream adoption of crypto. So according to Pew Research, only 16% of people in the US, that is, have invested in crypto. So now for some sort of hearsay evidence, I'd guess most of these early adopters have dipped their toes in a blockchain world via a fintech app like Robinhood or something like that to buy their Doge or their SHIB. So in other words, when people buy Ethereum or any such project with utility, chances are that it's a sight unseen. And they've never actually interacted with any decentralized app or DApp, let's say. Hence, when people talk about current adoption rates, it's a silly metric. Now let's face it, normal people see crypto as a scam or a get-rich-quick scheme, not somewhere to invest and meaningfully use to conduct their financial life. We won't be able to capture the other 84% without a substantial change in our underlying ethos. Are we genuinely creating long-term value on the network when people are trading pictures of monkeys for more value of a house? Or is it a vanity metric? Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, has emphasized that he will only consider the project a success when people are meaningfully able to utilize the blockchain to enhance their quality of life on a day-to-day basis. This will come in many forms as real-world applications like identity management systems, microloans, insurance markets, government infrastructure, logistics tabulation, and whatever. And sexy as all these things sound, they are useful and people would instantly adopt them earnestly as it quantitatively improves their lives. And that's how you gain genuine adoption. What real success looks like. Look at Twitter, and one thing you'll constantly see is the technical analyst astrologers saying things like Cardano is bleeding against Ethereum now that it's losing market dominance. And so let's ask you this. Who cares about what blockchain has what market percentage when there's still over 84% of people to on board? And most of those 16% who have dabbled in crypto aren't probably integrated into the industry anyway. As far as I'm concerned, if you don't have a plan to meaningfully bring these people into the fold, you're just vaporware. When you're intent on world domination, then you should have a plan and actually act like you mean to take over the world.
Let's introduce ourselves. We're Cardano. And if you'll permit us, we'd like to change the world.
Do you know how Pepsi and Coke measure their market penetration? Given that most people on the planet already drink them. They measure it in a metric they invented called share of throat, as in what percentage of liquid that people consume is theirs. Why they didn't call it throat penetration is anyone's guess. But there you go. Throat share on the blockchain. If world domination is our goal, let's think in those terms. Our key metric should be what percentage of people's economic life can be run better on Cardano than elsewhere, and how does everyone else compare to that? The goal should be that if you perform any action whatsoever that moves something valuable, whether it's money, assets, intellectual property, or data even, from one place to another, we should find a way to use the blockchain to improve that experience compared to what we have already. We don't need something like a bank. We need something better than a bank. And if we can't improve on what already exists in the existing systems, why bother putting it on the blockchain at all? In either case, while the average person doesn't care about peer review, decentralization, or regulatory oversight, if it doesn't translate to better user experience, governments and corporations certainly do care. Why big institutions need to be boring? Peer review and having solid programming foundations are essential when a single minor bug could cause a catastrophic system collapse. Just look at what happened with Y2K, where it was feared that due to an accidental programming quirk having to do with memory usage, computers wouldn't be able to cope with the switch from 1999 to 2000 and might collapse everything. In the lead up to New Year's, people started fearing the worst, and apocalypse survival gear actually sold out. Now, behind the scenes, big institutions were no less relaxed than the public, as their developers manically tried to fix everything. The total cost of the work done in preparation for Y2K is estimated at over $300 billion. So that's $451 billion as of January 2018, if you take inflation into account. And that's when those kind of numbers actually mean something. In other words, if big institutions don't focus on getting things done properly, it can cost entire countries' worth of GDP to rectify, if it is at all possible to solve before a systematic collapse. Cardano as an underbelly. So we mentioned before that 1 in 16 websites are run on Amazon Web Servers, or AWS it's called. Do most people even know what AWS is, or do they care? It's Amazon's most profitable niche. In fact, it's so profitable that it's what has essentially kept Amazon afloat. It wasn't Amazon's drones or fanciful mergers that made it money, but boring backbone infrastructure. That's what Cardano has in its future if it plays its cards right. If it manages to meaningfully onboard governments and companies enough that they feel comfortable running their key infrastructure on it, that's the key to mass adoption. True, in that scenario, most people wouldn't know, or frankly care, that Cardano even exists. This is what happens when you go for boring investments. You will reap the profits, but never the accolades. So, to sum it up, I know this is a bit of a long one. It's funny. We try and keep them short, but, you can't shut us up sometimes. Blockchain technology has the potential to change the world. We view it as one of the great asymmetric bets of history. Heads, it goes to zero. Tails, it takes over the world. Every aspect of your economic life is up for grabs. Banking, investing, identity management, whatever. And in aggregate, this is huge. Now, Cardano has all the cards necessary to gobble huge swathes of this new frontier, but we need to focus on usefulness to everyday life instead of hype like what Elon Musk does with Tesla, Doge and SHIB. So in the long term, utilization and adoption will drive the price of blockchain projects, not partnership announcements, marketing gimmicks, or horrendously expensive and crudely drawn pictures of monkeys. Now, that's all we have for today. The full article can be found on the AdaPulse website, and I'll be putting a link to it below as well. Now, we do want to hear your thoughts too, and to support us, do like, share, and subscribe. I've got the subscribe button up there, so do hit that too. And if you want to further support us, do consider delegating your hard-earned ADA to Swag, Zod, or ATM. Now, I'm Josh from ATM, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.